Thank you, Neil, and thank you all for being here. This is really a great pleasure, great chance to be here and to learn and to hear all this exciting developments, performance, research. So yes, I'm a cellist, and I'm going to give you a little background on cello realization or cello accompaniment of secco recitatives. I realize that most of you are maybe singers or from other backgrounds, but you may not know that cellists didn't play just those printed notes and bass lines. They played a lot more besides. This will be short. Neil has organized other conferences where I've talked at great length, and I have publications on this if you want to read it, but I just want to give you a little background and specifically then show you places where the bass line of the version of this Purcell song, Bess and Bedlam, is different in Corri's version than in the edition from Orpheus Britannicus from 1702. So that this will be more on the baseline discussion. And then with both Mary and with Anna, who I just met here for the first time. We have never actually played together, but they had the generosity to send me recordings of Bess and Bedlam, both of them based on Corri's annotation, both of them quite different. So I have prepared very different accompaniments to accompany both of them in this way, and I hope that will open dialogue and discussion. My contention is that not only should I primarily be reacting to their interpretations and saying, okay, well, I'll do this or I'll do that, but perhaps the fact that it's a cello, which is not usual, and I'm doing new things and proposing new things, will say, oh, well, maybe I would do it differently then, or maybe that would change. And I love this idea of an interactive dynamic. So let me first give you a little background on why I'm wiggling around so much. Okay, so first of all, we have a lot of anecdotal description that violinists, I'll start with violinists, went on tour just with cellists. There's a very important work by David Watkin on Corelli's sonatas and on how that could be accompanied with just a cello. We don't have recordings, obviously. We don't know what they played back then, but they were certainly playing concerts with their violinists of sonata repertoire with no keyboard, no theorbo, no harp, nothing else, just them. That's what we know. And then in terms of vocal accompaniment, often the cellist is being singled out as being particularly active down there. So Peroni says that the motets were accompanied ingeniously with the lively fire of the cello, handled with marvelous tricks. Gaillard talks about Bononcini, those fine inventions in his basses. Bononcini is a cellist, to which he was led by an instrument upon which he excels. And when Farinelli plays in Madrid, he said that Poretti was playing so many notes, you didn't even need the orchestra there. That was good enough for him just to have a cellist accompanying. So you see that you have, I don't know what they did, but they probably weren't just playing the note that they saw on the page. Now, in terms of what Corri knew, and London at that moment, we happen to have one of the most famous duos, shall we say, continuo duos, and that is Robert Lindley and Domenico Dragonetti. Dragonetti, famous double bass player. The two of them would rent themselves out as kind of a continuo team. You know, you're in town, the diva, here, we can accompany you. What I think is remarkable is that when Lindley dies, his obituary singles him out for his recitative accompaniment. How many cellists would be known during their lifetime, virtuoso cellists, for their recitative accompaniment? That's kind of rare. By the way, just another thing. So they played together for 50 years. And they were known all over Europe for recitative accompaniment. What I find so touching is that, so recitative is sung speech or spoken song or something like that. Dragonetti could understand and speak in 4 languages, but he mixed them all the time. The grammar, the vocabulary, no one could understand him when he spoke. And Lindley was a stutterer. And the two of them together accompanied the speech of others better than anyone else. There's something beautiful in that story. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is take specific examples from Bess and Bedlam, show you what Corri has written and what was in the Orpheus Britannicus first edition, and show you how this is also seconded or dealt with in my cello sources about accompaniment. So the first thing you see is that Corri writes out a lot of arpeggiated chords, right? I mean, he's not just saying play a C major chord, he's telling, let's assume a keyboard player to play that. This idea of arpeggiation is particularly strong in England at this time. So this is, granted, 30 years after his death, but Rockstro attended Lindley's performances in London, and he's giving us an example of how Lindley might have accompanied the recitative in Don Giovanni. Notice the heavy arpeggiation, and if you're a cellist, you will see it is on one string. If I'm playing across strings, I have only 4 strings, I have only 4 possible notes I can play. But when I can play notes on the same string, I can really go to town. Notice also at the end, he's adding the 9th, which we do hear in the vocal part. I mean, this is a lot of notes here, right? This is not just playing one chord. And actually, this idea of arpeggiation is present in other sources. Schetke, when he tells us how to play the notes, notice he is separating all 4 or all 3 notes. Okay, this is also about the same time as Corri. I'm trying to find sources. The written sources come after the anecdotal ones I cited earlier. Again, more arpeggiated, this idea that in England we're really going to town. And Holmes contrasts the way Lindley accompanies the recitative with the way they do it in Vienna. In both cases, you have a cellist playing the harmonies, but Lindley is arpeggiating and doing it brilliantly and excellently. In France, on the other hand, it was kind of a mixed bag. They seemed to encourage separating the bass notes, but playing the top 2 notes together. I should say, not everyone in France does this. This is particularly important to Charles Baudieu, who is one of the authors of the Conservatoire methods. Sorry, I didn't cite the 4 authors. You probably know about these methods. They're done by committee, late 18th, early 19th century. They have tremendous influence throughout Europe. They are translated. This particular excerpt, you're going to see it in Italian, in German, in Russian even. I mean, it's everywhere. So it's an important source to deal with. Baudieu writes his own method for cello playing, and he talks about how important it is that the high 2 notes sound simultaneously while the other 2 are broken. And then in Italy, what they're really into is trying to play as simultaneously as possible in their recitative accompaniment. So this is Rachele. The arpeggio is none other than a succession of chords which occur one after the other, which are performed either with only brilliantly struck bow strokes or with alternating different bow strokes. The first ones will be played by making the lower note sound and passing in the same bow from one to each subsequently higher string in order to play the whole chord, that is, and this is important, in one single vibrant blow. And those chords mostly serve in recitatives. It appears that the Italian approach was much more simultaneously and abrupt, certainly than what was going on in England and probably more than in France. And I have a recording. We have one recording, old recording of a cellist accompanying recitatives. I haven't found, Kai, maybe you know of another one. If so, I'd love to. This is the only one I know of. You will hear how he's playing full chords. They tend to be 3 or 4 note chords, more or less simultaneously. The other thing I want you to listen to, I'll talk about in 2 seconds, is the placement of the chords always come after the end of the text.
In sepoltura, oi vos sentite, io voglio.
Ecco il tutor.
Davvero?
Certo la sua voce.
Salva, tra poco ci rivedremo, o da dirvi qualche cosa.
E ancora io, signor Figaro.
Bravissima, vado.
Quanto è garbato.
Ah, disgraziato Figaro, a indegno, a maledetto, a scellerato.
Ecco qua, sempre grida.
Ma si può dar di peggio? Un ospedale ha fatto di tutta la famiglia, a forza d'opio sangue e stranutilia.
Okay, so that gives you an idea. You can find this on YouTube. It's really fascinating. Actually, I'm not even talking about what I find amazing is all the added words and the added interaction. You really get the sense that they're acting as much as they are singing in the recitative. And let us not forget that when you trained as a singer in the 19th century, half of your cursus was also spent learning to act, to declaim, to learn gesture, to learn facial expressions, a part of our training that we no longer really have when you sign up to learn singing in a conservatory. So another issue is that you will see that sometimes Corri introduces a harmony ahead of time. Here is a case where Purcell's version, the 7th, I would normally attack it perhaps on the second half note, and Corri is telling me, why don't you play it ahead of time? The reason to do that is to help the singer find the note, and this idea, in den Mund zu legen, if you can turn to the next one, we see in our sources that my job is to put the highest note on top or to help the singer find the new note. And Corri has done that in certain cases in anticipating certain harmonies. Another issue is just what I was saying about that cellist in that Rossini recitative recording. Corri has actually written out displacing the chords until the text is over. So if you see the first version for Melancholy, and by the way, that appoggiatura would probably have been sung even though it's not written in the Orpheus Britannicus, but Corri even writes it in as a real note, that instead of 2 C's, we sing D and C, right? And then I add my chords, whereas that's not the case in the original version here. Also notice that means he's going to have a measure with not the right number of beats. So the next measure only has 2 beats so that he can get back on track. He readjusts the bar line. We see this in our sources, and this is something I really hope my conductors will let me do more often. The chords do not come necessarily where they are written, they come later, particularly in arrest. So this is back to that famous conservatory method, and I have put in little blue brackets the places where the harmony is not arriving where it's indicated. So let me just explain. I think it's clear, but I should. The top bass clef line, the middle line in the 3 clefs you see there, is what Pergolesi wrote. So this is La Serva Padrona, an excerpt. And the bottom is what the cellist should play. Is that clear to people? You're following me? I see that high A. I play AEC in that inversion. If people are following me. Oh, good. So you can see in the second staff, for example, the F sharp begins at the beginning of the measure, but I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to play it in the rest. Ogni alte, clunk. Okay, so this idea of displacing it to a moment that's a rest, or sometimes to a high note. In the third staff, last measure, io, I'm sounding with io, because that way I'm giving emphasis and more perhaps declamation. Of course, in Italian, I don't need to have io there, right? So mi it's got the chord. Okay. This is also true in many other sources, particularly in Italy. The attack always after the word, because otherwise the audience would lose the last syllable in the recitatives. The cellist and the double bassist at the harpsichord were indoctrinated. I may have mistranslated that. The study of figured bass, I don't know. Someone can correct my Italian. Which allowed them to adorn the modulations, recurring at the end of each phrase of the recitative with elegant flourishes. I didn't say this, but in Italy we have this team, the cello, the keyboard player, and the double bass, contrabassa al cembalo, and that role that the double bass is there is particularly important for me. When I play with a double bass, I don't need to play that written note at all, and it certainly doesn't need to sound as the lowest note in my chord. It's as if we're one big string instrument, and that allows for a lot more freedom in what the cello can do. And this idea of displacement goes really late. Here's a very famous recitative you all know from the Messiah. This is a cello method, so end of the 19th century. For behold, clunk, I bring you glad tidings, clunk, of great joy, clunk, which shall be unto all people, clunk, clunk, clunk. I am constantly deferring my chords from what is written in my score, right? Okay. Another thing that we see in Britannicus is that sometimes Corri changes the harmony and tries to make it more tonal in a way. I don't know if in Purcell's music, sometimes there's an ambiguity or a modality that can be strange for the ears of someone who lived 100 years later, shall we say. So if you look at the D major, so the third measure on the Orpheus, it's technically still D minor there, even though I'm heading to a cadence in G, because the next harmony is C major. So he's staying in C I would argue, I think you can play that in D minor, but Corri automatically adds the F sharp, as if first we want to tonicize G major and then go on to C major. So there are a few examples like that. Actually, he's pretty faithful to the bass line, Corri. Can I just say there are not that many changes? So now I have, you've got the music up there in Corri's version with all these wonderful additions or expressive marks. I think you've been told what is a breath mark, what is a paggiatura or an added note. You've already gone into all that before, so I won't tell you that. And he does propose something. It's interesting, he introduces the bassoon in the drawing there. I don't think he particularly wanted this cantata to be played on a bassoon. I think, I mean, that's really high writing for a bassoon. It seems very obviously to be...
It's not the volume's full.
Exactly, I've looked at the volume, just drawings.
So the bassoon's not related to that.
No, but I think a bassoon could have perhaps accompanied a cantata somewhere, or he wouldn't have put it anywhere, because he mentions many different instruments.
Lots and lots.
But he wouldn't put a flute. He wouldn't put a violin. Okay. Okay. If there is a flute, then good. I felt, because when I first saw that, but then I did this, I looked at all the volume, and there are so many different instruments. Okay. So I'm going to, in some ways, base some of my things on what Corri writes, but actually, I'm also basing it a lot on these other sources, if you see what I mean. His is idiomatic to a keyboard, and so it's going to be perhaps less faithful as what you guys are doing, which is wonderful, but it's an extrapolation, a historical extrapolation, shall we say. Okay, so what are the things that I have at my disposal? Well, I have range, right? I can realize high, I can realize low. I have the number of notes. I can put in lots of notes or only, say, one or two. I can play pizzicato, ponticello. I can do Alberti bass playing. I can do different types of arpeggiation and holding notes. I can do lines that accompany the voice for a minute or add little counter melodies. So all these things are at my disposal, right? So I'm kind of using this as a way to say, hey guys, get your conductors to include cellists in this realization thing as much as I am, to have the wonderful opportunity to work with both Mary and with Anna on this. So how shall we do this, gals? Shall we? We've never done this before. You are seeing our first version of these recitatives together. Shall we do first a recitative, or shall we play it through, or how do you want to work, kind of?
I think you go first. Shall I go first and see what happens? Yeah.
They've been so wonderful and generous by email and everything, but this is honestly the first time we've been together.
From silent shades and Elysian groves, where sad departed spirits mourn their loves, from crystal streets and from that country where Jove crowns the fields with flowers all I need. Where sad
not see my love as he passed by you. His two flaming eyes, if they come nigh you, they will scorch up your hearts. Ladies, beware ye, lest he should dart of the knots that may ensnare. Hark, hark, I hear old Chiron bow. His boat he will no longer stay. The Furies lash their lips and call, come away, come away. Poor Bess will return to the place whence she came. Since the world is so mad, she can hope for no cure. For love's grown above a shadow, a name which fools do admire and wise men endure. Cold and hungry I grow. Ambrosia will I feed upon, drink nectar still and sing. Who is content does all sorrow prevent, and blessed her strong, must flee from the law. In your heart is as great as a king.
I want to learn from you guys. I want your input, your ideas. Yes.
There was one thing that struck me towards the end, in the 3/4 section, since the singer is singing very legato, would
Yes.
not play legato.
The end at the thoughts for the king.
section, the last 3/4 section.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, Clive, I kind of got a little. I lost the plot there for 2 or 3 minutes. Why don't we redo the third?
Who's content?
Yeah, who is content? I wanted at the end when she's talking, she's becoming delusional and becoming grand. I wanted in both versions to use 4 voices, but the beginning we're not aware of that, so I can play it more legato. Shall we try that? Who is content?
Who is content does all sorrow prevent, and blessing her strong, must flee from the law. In her heart is as great as a king.
I love the way that the imaginative way that the spreads happen, sometimes from the top going down, and also there was a lovely. I know you went, oh wow! There was a lovely counter melody
It
put
was
in.
so clear. I felt very
Yeah.
comfortable. I felt very comfortable with
Have you
this.
rehearsed that before? Was this the first
No,
time?
this is the first time we've ever played
very,
it
very
together. I mean, she sent me her. So she sent me a recording,
Yeah.
and Anna sent me a recording. So I know, kind of, like I knew. Bright Cynthia kept. She takes a faster tempo than Anna. Okay, so that means what? That means I'm going to do 2 voices, not 3, or I'm going to do the. Oh well, if I'm doing 3, that means I could do a 7th there. And I had help. Yeah.
No, it was wonderful. The symbiosis, I think that the listening was wonderful.
Well, I really enjoyed that.
Well, good. Well, we'll have to do more of this, and you have to get their cellists in. See, I'm on a mission here to get more of this happening in general, because I tend to play later, like late 18th and 19th century music, and it's very rare that cellists are doing that in secco recitatives, Donizetti, Rossini. If they are, the conductor writes it out for us, and they don't let us do our own thing. And so I'm hoping to.
Have we got an example of secco recitative that we're going to do or not?
Well,
It's
the
so
secco,
interesting
this
to
is
hear
full
how
of
differently
secco.
you would treat a secco recitative than in this very early music. I mean, because of course the style
Okay,
has
so
to
I'm
change.
treating this early music as if it is early 19th century Corri music. I'm kind of doing something ahistorical. I'm taking this and we're doing it in Corri's way.
Yeah,
To
sure.
tell you the truth, for Purcell, I don't think it would have been a cello, probably. It would have been other
Yeah,
instruments.
yeah.
So there are many things that are would have been maybe different.
Could we just go back to the beginning?
Yeah,
So, I mean, the very beginning is secco recitative.
exactly.
Yeah.
There are secco recitative, there are several of them interspersed. The beginning is when usually what happens is when she's going in her delirium also, she's in secco recitative stuff. And then she brings herself back. And the measured arias, she's less crazy. There's a distinction in her affect. But we definitely have recitatives here. I
But
mean,
of course, the long notes in the secco recitative would be played as short notes.
Changes later, yeah.
well, so I believe it depends on the acoustic. I mean, I think what they would have played is an attack, and then she sings.
Yeah.
Which is what I do usually. But then in
That's no, I love that. But I would actually even I was going to say
Yeah.
maybe make that more sonorous and legato be.
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where it's sounded. Yeah, just this kind of. Actually, I mean, I know you'll swap over, but could
Yeah.
you just do the first couple of lines of this?
Okay. She's in the grave. She's in the low register, and I was thinking I might be too active if I did that. No, that's right. Okay. No,
I also wondered if because you started from up there and went down, right? So I was just wondering what would happen. Is there any way that you could actually sound the low C and then go up and down? Is that possible?
You mean?
Just to get, I don't know, it just as an effect to
Okay.
something different.
Yeah.
But also-
and I have a different idea for
But also to silent shade, so if you want to bring the silent shade.
Silent shades and young groves, where sad departed spirits mourn their loves from crystal streets and from that country where Jove crowns the fields with flowers all thy need.
Yeah, that's great. Just the one thing I was thinking though was because of the opening from silent shade, something it's great what you're doing, but just something that's more evocative of that.
Well, my idea for silent was not to play. Was to be silent and let her sing in the
At the very beginning though.
yeah.
The setting of the first chorus.
So okay,
Just
so
something that's sort of
yeah, more intimate.
Hello,
Yes.
Okay.
I did Viaggio a Reims in Salzburg in September, and the recitativi were only with cello and contrabass.
Ah,
And yes,
that's even better.
yeah, that was super funny because, and what I did is to take the musicians and to be at the scenische probe, to be at the rehearsals with the singers in the scenische staging.
Ah,
Because they got ideas about what is happening on the stage, and then they were improvising.
See,
and
this-
then I wrote for them the recitativi.
oh, you wrote it out for them.
Yes, of course, I have them here now if you want. But it was a really difficult job because modern cellists are not used to improvise. I tried a different version. The first version was to write the harmony. Test the harmony, do what you want. No way.
No, I know. But you see, I feel it's like it's a vicious circle because you find they can't do it, you write it out for them, and then they really can't do it. I mean, it's like, when are we going to finally say, this is our job? I mean, what happened with me 10 years ago, I was playing with Akamus, the Theorbo had a bad back, We were playing at Wigmore Hall, and they said, okay, Hilary, you're going to harmonize these 3 Corelli sonatas. And I said, oh, well, I need time for that. Oh, we have a 20-minute raccord. We have a 20-minute raccord. And I was like, wow, okay, I got work to do. But if you, well, I'm glad they did it. I'm glad the people...
We're going to swap over, because just timing-wise.
Yes, yes.
If you do play the
Yes.
flat, do it a little bit more subtly, because it sounds as if the singer needs the help.
The spirit, you mean?
The beat grows, anticipating.
Oh, yes. So,
shorter, I think.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like the singer needs the help.
I got it. Okay. Yeah. So,
Can I ask a question
yeah.
of you, though? I mean, in Corri's chords there,
yeah.
and I know this from also organ accompaniment, and often in recitatives, the organist is told to play the note of the singer to guide them, right?
Right.
He's guiding, but
Yeah,
that's what I was.
obvious.
But you
That's
don't-
what I said.
Now it's making the singer look bad.
Okay, I didn't mean to do that. I certainly did not mean to. Well, I don't need to. I could just.
Please do.
Okay. Okay. So my question is, if I do slides in portamento in my accompaniment, do you find that inappropriate? That she's doing? Okay. I did more with her. I don't know if I did more in that version. Try to. How does the pizzicato work?
Love it.
That worked? Okay.
Where did you do the
Well, I decided on one. I don't know. A part of this was kind of. I did it at
Was it
Poor
the
Bess
Just
for
for
his
the
sake. Poor Bess for his
Oh,
sake. And then also Ponticello. I felt when she goes, come away, come. No historical source I've ever read would tell me to do that. Fine. Okay. I love feedback, yes.
I have a sensation that sometimes the harmony that is written by Corri, are for the cello are coming too early. For example, in the last page.
Yes, let's do this. Can you?
Can you please go to the last page?
Yeah.
I wouldn't play the C small in the third
I know, but he did it. Okay, so I didn't do it for what I did for Mary.
For me,
is I just did the C and then I had a.
No, I wouldn't play at all the harmony before she sang, because I think the word cold changed everything.
You know, that's when I played this piece with the Purcell vision. I've never introduced the E flat early. I never have done it. But because Corri did, and because my goal is to go in Corri's direction with Corri's ornament, I decided how can I make it convincing. So with her, I came from the 7th, right? I did and with Mary, I did it ambiguously, just C.
But it's dur, no?
I can finish major and then add it after.
But maybe it's also to remind the singer that that there's
coming,
a change.
yeah.
It's
The E flat's coming, right?
It's like come on, singer, minor now.
Yeah, although he puts it on in dur.
Yeah.
I mean,
can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
Is there something, perhaps, I'm not sure if this is out of context as well, is there the way that he's done this arpeggio, like this, whether there's kind of an effect of like, this is a shiver or something, there's like, I don't know if that's easy.
Well, a cold shiver. A cold shiver.
Then harmony,
Okay, how could we do that?
a trembling or something.
I could do that, something like that.
Cold and hungry am I grown. And then it kind of shifts into
Another suggestion, and it's not trying to take. What happens if endure?
Yeah.
Can you end with octave Cs or? So
yes.
It doesn't have a.
Yes, if I do.
Or even just a fifth. Yeah, that sort of rough endure, and then you go magically in with the E, something with the
Yeah.
But this doesn't sound cold, it sounds warm. So
Okay, so let's try to make it cold.
Cold and hungry am I grown.
Or something. Can you wait
So like the effect is.
So you play the octave C.
I think will be in pianissimo. Everything will be.
Yes, in pianissimo. Okay,
That's just a.
Was that the chord?
Cold and high am I grown, and Brugge where I feel above.
Can I ask one more thing? Just because try and follow Corri, I know that he wrote this to give characters maybe a sense of what to do. But if you ended with that octave C, but then on cold, do some very cold arpeggio with the C.
That's
with the
very
C minor.
Purcell, the
Just
shivering with the teeth.
With that, and don't let her sing the cold on her own.
And then,
Yes, but and do it cold and shivering.
Cold.
And hungry.
this is not cold and shivering.
It's a bit.
No,
It's too active. Oh, you mean tremolo?
No, that's good. Can you slow it down to less active leadership? No, that's it. No, something that's coming from the flexibility of the bow still, but not as energetic. Yes. Very not active. Great. Let's try that.
Whoa.
Okay.
And if you are following Corri, can you go down? Go down again.
You mean they're all up there?
No,
Oh,
they're
this
going
one.
down, up and down.
This one. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would have done a sort of bouncy bow thing like that.
I don't know.
But I think
they would.
What if they would just?
With theatre, everything that serves the purpose
Yes.
will be done.
That's what I'm. That's what I. Okay, I'll try their octave.